Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to today's Sunday session. My name is Chaitanya Mungi and I'm working at Science Activity Center at EISER Pune. Those who are tuning in after a long time, हम थोड़ी सी मिक्स लँग्वेज में बात करेंगे. हम थोड़ा सा हिंदी, थोड़ा सा इंग्लिश आणि वाटलं तर थोडंसं मराठी पण वापरायचा आपण प्रयत्न करूया. After a long time we are joining for another Sunday session, so welcome you all again. And we are right now in Science Activity Center at EISER Pune. So for those who don't know much about EISER Pune is a research organization which organizes workshops for teachers, students and everyone. This is the campus for EISER Pune, beautiful campus that we have at EISER, and on this campus you can see a lot of activities that keep happening. EISER mainly is a research organization for research as well as communication and research as well as education, and we have different courses like BSMS courses, other courses. This again is a beautiful shot of our campus which is located at EISER in Pune Pashan area, and we organize a lot of workshop for students, teachers which are from school level onwards, and these workshops typically a lot of students like to visit us on different occasions, like Science Day is coming up, so we would have students visiting us on Science Day as well. We have science experiments and activities that get conducted with students, and as you can see they are made from readily available easy material and everyone seems to enjoy them a lot. Teachers especially enjoy these activities because they are not just science activities, they also help them teach various concepts in much more hands-on manner and in much interactive way. इस सब में एक और चीज़ जो हमें नोटिस हुई है कि टीचर्स के साथ जब हम वर्कशॉप लेते हैं तो टीचर्स का हमेशा एक रिक्वायरमेंट रहता है कि ये जो एजुकेशनल टूल्स आप हमें बता रहे, ऑल दीज टीचिंग टूल्स विच आर देयर, प्लीज़ लेट अस नो हाउ टू यूज़ दीज टीचिंग टूल्स इन क्लासरूम and how can we teach various topics that we teach on a regular basis using these materials or using these activities. And with that spirit in mind or with that thing in mind, आज का जो सेशन है वो हमने ऑर्गेनाइज किया हुआ है which is about tangram. सो टैनग्राम आप चैट में लिख के हमें बता सकते हैं कि कितने लोगों को पता है कि टैनग्राम क्या है. ओके, सो टैनग्राम एक्चुअली इज अ वेरी फन एक्टिविटी. टैनग्राम is not, you can't say, you can say an activity. Tangram is actually a puzzle and it's a very fun interactive puzzle which was thought to be made almost in 18th century. एंड उसका ओरिजिन जो है, सो फॉर दोज हु डोंट नो व्हाट टैनग्राम इज, मैं आपको ये जो टैनग्राम का एक्चुअल फोटो है वो दिखाना चाहता हूँ. तो यू कैन सी दिस पर्टिकुलर पजल दैट यू सी हियर विच कंसिस्ट ऑफ 7 pieces is what is actually considered to be tangram. There is also a 5-piece version of this tangram. 5 pieces का भी एक tangram का version होता है, but this particular one is a 7-piece version of tangram. और टैंग्राम जो है उसका ओरिजिन लगभग 18th सेंचुरी में कहीं तो पाया जाता है, एंड समवेयर इन चाइना दिस प्रोबेबली हैज़ ओरिजिनेटेड, एंड फ्रॉम चाइना दिस पजल देन ट्रैवल टू डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड लाइक फ्रांस या फिर अमेरिका, और वहाँ पे लोगों ने रात भर जग के ये पजल सॉल्व करने की कोशिश की और देखने की कोशिश की कि टैंग्राम के पजल से हम क्या क्या कर सकते हैं. और जिनको टैंग्राम के बारे में पता है या फिर नहीं भी पता, दिस 7 pieces कैन एक्चुअली बी अरेंज्ड इन many organized patterns. So as you can see on the screen right now, the same pieces of tangram can be used to make different animals, and this is just a fun puzzle type of thing with it. You can make a fox, you can make a crab, आप उससे बिल्ली, कुत्ता, ऐसे अलग अलग चीज़ें भी बना सकते हो. The same puzzle can also be used to make new shapes like house or a boat or a plane, and these are interesting ideas क्योंकि ये 7 ही pieces से आप ये अलग अलग शेप्स बना सकते हैं, एंड दिस बिकम्स अ पजल. सो फॉर दोज हु आर इंटरेस्टेड, आप हम अपने मॉम डैड, छोटे बच्चों को, भाई बहन, किसी को भी ये बता सकते हैं कि ये 7 पीस लीजिए और इससे मुझे प्लेन बना के दिखाइए, या फिर एक आधा रॉकेट बना के दिखाइए, या फिर हाउस बना के दिखाइए. एंड यू कैन ऑल्सो मेक ज्योमेट्रिक शेप्स लाइक बिग ट्रायंगल्स, पैरेललोग्राम्स, ट्रेपीजियम्स, इवन रोम्बसेस इन सम केसेस इफ द साइड्स आर एग्जैक्टली सेम. तो ऐसे अलग अलग शेप्स जो है वो टैनग्राम से बन पाते हैं. बट these pieces or these puzzles are sometimes readily available in market, but अगर हमारे पास उतना टाइम नहीं है या फिर हमारे पास वो मार्केट में अवेलेबल नहीं है तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं. एंड स्पेशली इन अ क्लासरूम वेयर देयर माइट बी मेनी स्टूडेंट्स, हाउ डू वी यूज अ सिंपल पेपर टू एक्चुअली मेक टैनग्राम, वो अभी हम इस वीडियो में देखेंगे. तो मैं ऑडियंस को रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा 1-2 मिनट लीजिए चाहिए तो, और अगर आप एक ऐसा A4 पेपर ला सकते हैं, जस्ट अ सिंपल A4 पेपर, किसी भी कलर का चलेगा, वी हैव कलर्ड पेपर सो वी आर यूजिंग दैट वन. बट अगर आपके पास कोई कलर्ड A4 पेपर रहेगा तो प्लीज़ गो अहेड एंड गेट दैट पेपर, ऑल्सो गेट अ सिजर या फिर एक पेपर कटर. एंड दिस इज अ कॉशनरी नोट, इफ यू आर यूजिंग सिजर्स और कटर्स, प्लीज पेरेंट्स आर एडवाइज टू सुपरवाइज देयर चिल्ड्रन एज वेल एज बच्चों को भी मैं कहूँगा कि केयरफुल रहिए, सिजर अच्छे से यूज कीजिए, खुद को हर्ट मत कीजिए. Now let's see how we can actually make a simple tangram using a A4 paper. And what we'll do now is I'll switch to another camera where I can show you how to make these activities. Now what we are using is a simple A4 paper and this आप में से बहुत से लोगों को पता रहेगा कि एक A4 पेपर को स्क्वायर में कैसे कन्वर्ट किया जा सकता है. So what we'll do now is we'll just take this paper and fold it along one side till you form a perfect triangle which looks something like this. और उसमें हमें करना ये है कि यहाँ से साइड्स जो है, ये आप देख सकते हो, ये जो साइड्स है इनको अच्छे से अलाइन कर लेना है. एंड यू कैन स्टार्ट फोल्डिंग द पेपर इनटू अ ट्रायंगल. ओके, सो इफ यू गेट अ परफेक्ट टू साइडेड ट्रायंगल हियर, तो आप यहाँ पर इसको फोल्ड कर सकते हैं. एंड वंस यू फोल्ड द पेपर लाइक दिस, नाउ यहाँ पर जो बनेगा, ये जो बन रहा है यहाँ पे, दैट इज योर परफेक्ट स्क्वायर. एंड what we can also do is in order to cut that square out, we can just rotate the paper again, fold this flap downwards. इस flap को हम नीचे fold कर सकते हैं और इस flap को नीचे fold करके एक ऐसा आपका shape बन जाएगा. Okay, you will get a shape which looks like this. Now in this shape you have this flap which is extra और ये जो है ये आपका square बन जाएगा. So now using a paper, this is just paper folding so far, but now using a cutter, what we can do is this is where if children are doing it on their own, you are advised to have parent supervision. अच्छे से कीजिए, खुद को हर्ट मत कीजिए. Okay, you can use a paper cutter or you can even use a scissor to actually smoothly cut off this edge and you will almost get a perfect square. Okay, तो यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा रह जाता है but that's okay. You will get almost a perfect square with this particular orientation. तो यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हो कि एक almost square आपका बन जाता है. Now, tangram is a square puzzle, so we will start with a square. एंड नाउ वी विल गो ऑन कटिंग द शेप्स फर्दर, जिससे हमें आगे के शेप्स जो है वो बनाने में मदद होगी. नाउ वी वांट 2 बिग ट्रायंगल्स इन टैनग्राम. तो वो बिग ट्रायंगल्स लेने के लिए अभी ये हमारा स्क्वायर जो है ये ऑलरेडी एक बड़े 2 ट्रायंगल्स में कट हो गया. एनीवेज वी हैव फोल्डेड इट हियर. सो व्हाट वी विल डू इज नाउ वी विल कट अलोंग दिस फोल्ड. तो हम इस फोल्ड के अलोंग अभी धीरे से कट करेंगे. ओके, सो एज यू गो ऑन कटिंग अलोंग दिस फोल्ड, now you will get 2 big triangles. Okay, आपके पास 2 ऐसे बड़े बड़े triangles रहेंगे and these 2 big triangles can now be further used to make further pieces of tangrams. तो अभी के लिए क्या करना है, एक piece जो है उसको हम साइड में रख देंगे. The second piece which is there, we'll use this piece and again fold it in half. तो इसको हाफ में फोल्ड करने के लिए हमें यहाँ से इसको सिर्फ डबल फोल्ड करना है. You can fold this piece exactly in half like this. Okay, and try to be as precise as possible. So you can fold this in half like this and then you can see you can open it as two sided figure. यहाँ को आपको बीच में से फिर से कट करना है. You can cut this exactly in half from center and you will get 2 triangles which look like these. Now these 2 triangles are your tangrams main 2 triangles. अगर आपने देखा रहेगा tangram के जो 7 shapes है, I can also show it to you on the screen here. That in main tangram you will actually get 7 figures. Okay, as you can see here you will get these 7 figures. तो यहाँ पे ये जो 2 बड़े triangle है आपके, वो आपके अभी ready हो गए. Now we'll see how to get more figures out of this or more other images. Now ये 2 triangle जो थे इनको साइड में रख देना, इनको further cut नहीं करना है. Keep these 2 triangles aside. बड़ा वाला ये जो और एक triangle piece था, हमने square को कुछ इस तरीके से divide किया था. Okay, we had divided the whole paper into a square. This is a small recap because if somebody is following the instructions and they join halfway, they should know. The square, the A4 paper was transformed into a square. The square was further cut into 2 of these triangles. और इसमें से एक बड़ा triangle जो है वो अभी आपको यहाँ पे लेना है. ये बड़े triangles को किसी भी इमेज में आपको अगर किसी भी पेपर के इसमें अगर आपको हाफ निकालना है तो you can just fold it, align the ends and make a small notch here. ये नॉच निकालने पे आपको इसका मिड पॉइंट मिल जाएगा. दिस पर्टिकुलर नॉच हियर इज द मिड पॉइंट ऑफ दिस सेगमेंट एंड व्हाट विल डू इज विल फोल्ड दिस एंड नाउ टू दिस साइड. यहाँ पर इसको आपको फोल्ड करना है और ये ऐसे फोल्ड करके आपका एक बोर्ड जैसा फिगर बन जाना चाहिए, बोर्ड जैसा शेप बन जाना चाहिए. ओके, नाउ वंस यू गेट दिस शेप, व्हाट यू विल डू इज यू विल कट दिस फर्दर. आपको इस ट्रायंगल को कट कर लेना है टू गेट अ स्मॉल ट्रायंगल विच लुक्स लाइक दिस. Okay, you will get this small triangle and you will get a trapezium which looks like that. अब ये आपका स्मॉल ट्रायंगल जो है ये आपका टैनग्राम का थर्ड ट्रायंगल है जो रेडी हो गया. विल कीप इट असाइड. एंड इन दिस सेम ट्रापीजियम दैट वी सॉ वी कैन फोल्ड दिस इन हाफ. इसको हाफ में फोल्ड करना है. ओके एंड यू विल सी दैट टू शेप्स विच आर सेम एज ईच अदर विल अगेन फॉर्म. ये आपकी बोट जो था, बोट जैसा शेप जो बन गया था उसको अपने हाफ में कट किया है. वी अगेन कट दिस शेप फ्रॉम हियर इन हाफ and you will get two same looking shapes which look like this. Now this is the tricky part, so be careful about this. इसमें से एक पीस में से हमें चाहिए एक स्क्वायर. So again if you want a square from this shape looking piece you will fold it like this. Okay, ये फोल्ड ठीक से एक बार देख लेना क्योंकि यहाँ पे मिस्टेक हो गया तो पूरा टैनग्राम स्टार्ट से फिर से बनाना पड़ेगा. What you end up doing is you fold this particular one into two shapes, so you get one square and you get one triangle and you can cut this out. Okay, इसको आराम से कट कर लेना है. So now you got your small triangle and square, and this is the last step but it is also the most crucial one because if this step goes wrong again you'll have to make the whole tangram. So in this particular shape we want a काजू कतरी जैसा या फिर parallelogram जैसा shape हमको इसमें से निकालना है. So remember where do you fold the triangle or where do you fold this edge will determine what shape will come up. अगर मैंने इसको ऐसे फोल्ड किया, ओके, इफ आई फोल्ड इट लाइक दिस आई एक्चुअली गेट अ बिग ट्रायंगल. देखिए अगर मैं इसको ऐसे फोल्ड करूंगा तो मुझे ट्रायंगल मिलेगा एंड आई ऑलरेडी हैव अ बिग ट्रायंगल विच लुक्स लाइक दिस. सो आई एक्चुअली डोंट वांट दिस शेप, सो आई हैव टू फोल्ड दिस फ्रॉम द अदर ओरिएंटेशन. मुझे इसको यहाँ से फोल्ड करना है इस तरीके से. ओके, सो आई फोल्ड द स्क्वायर शेप. ये जो ओरिजिनल शेप था मेरा ऐसा, it's actually 1 2 3 4, yeah, it's kind of a quadrilateral. इस quadrilateral को हमने इस तरीके से फोल्ड किया है so that you get a parallelogram or a parallelogram like shape here जिसको हमने काजू कतरी जैसा कहा था, and you get another small triangle. So now you can cut this shape carefully off. इसको अच्छे से कट कर लेना है and now you will get your last piece of the tangram which looks like this. This is a parallelogram. So now what we'll do is we'll arrange or we'll get all the 7 pieces here. And you can see that all these 7 pieces that you got from the same piece of A4 paper can also be realigned, or I will show you the image of this because this looks a bit messy. यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हो you have a big triangle, 2 big triangles, 1 medium sized triangle, 2 small triangles, 1 square and 1 parallelogram. Okay, if I have to point it again, you have 2 big triangles, 1 small or medium sized triangle, 2 small triangles, 1 square and 1 parallelogram. Okay, I hope everyone seems to understand what I'm talking about. अगर नहीं समझ में आ रहा है प्लीज चैट में लिखिए, we can explain it to you again. Now once we got these 7 shapes, अब originally तो हमने square से चालू किया था, so all of these shapes are made of a square. The main idea of tangram is to rearrange these exact 7 pieces that you see here into a square again. Okay, and that puzzle seems to take minutes and minutes and hours for some people because it is not as easy as it sounds. You don't know where which piece came from. Fold होने से पहले कौन सा piece कहाँ पे था ये हमें नहीं पता होता है और उसके वजह से we really aren't sure how to arrange this. Now those who are smart students and who have probably taken a screenshot of the first image, in that or arrangement you can exactly see which was the tangrams arrangement. And for just so that I shouldn't leave anyone hanging, किसी को बिना solution के नहीं छोड़ना चाहिए, so this is the solution of the tangram. You can see that how these pieces organize into a square again, and this tells you how these pieces might have come about. हमने कहाँ से कौन सा piece cut किया है. You can also now, because if you have made this tangram with your own hands, आपको पता है कि क्या fold करके कहाँ पे गया था, कहाँ से कौन सा shape आया हुआ. This is just the fun part of it, and as I showed you all the different images, ये जो थोड़ी देर पहले मैंने आपको ये सभी images दिखाए हुए थे, अलग अलग lion, whale, elephant, even rhino, seal, ये सब जो आप देख सकते हो यहाँ पे, all of these shapes can be made using tangram. और यहाँ पर now that you have made these 7 pieces, you can see where each piece seems to fit. But what we are looking at tangram as is as educational tool, या फिर हमें थोड़ा सा जो मैथ्स का बोरिंग सा लगने वाला सब्जेक्ट है उसे हमें इंटरेस्टिंग बनाने के लिए अभी tangram का यूज़ करना है. And what do we actually do with tangram as a mathematical tool, or when we are using tangram मैथ्स समझने के लिए, तो हम क्या यूज़ कर सकते हैं वो हम अभी देखते हैं. Now I will again share my screen and I'll show you the topics that we will be exploring using Tangram. So if I say what exactly are we going to explore using Tangram, in Tangram you can see that identification of different shapes is possible. हमारे पास अलग अलग ज्योमेट्री के शेप्स हैं और ये कौन से शेप्स हम यहाँ पर समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं वो हम टैनग्राम से देख सकते हैं. After that, there is a concept in triangles chapter in NCERT. I think वो 10th standard में आता है. We'll show you the textbook also later. But there is a concept called similarity and congruency. So we will also try to explore this concept called similarity and congruency using Tangram. Finally, we can also look at fractions and ratios. So ratios जो होता है वो ratio और fraction को भी हम Tangram से समझ सकते हैं. We can also look at Pythagoras Theorem. How do you prove or how do you look at Pythagoras Theorem using Tangram? और ये जो एरर और एरर मेजरमेंट है वो शायद आज के लिए थोड़ा सा हैवी हो जाएगा, तो विल सी इफ द टाइम परमिट्स वी कैन लुक एट एरर मेजरमेंट यूजिंग टैनग्राम एज वेल, बट दैट इज यूजुअली meant for slightly older students. So we'll try to see based on our audience and the timing whether we can do that. Now, very startingly, I will now show you another square or other pieces of Tangram that instead of making it from paper, we have actually used a laser cutter to cut acrylic tangram. Okay, and why? Because yes, it's nice to use paper on large scale, या फिर अगर बहुत ज़्यादा लोग हैं तो हम पेपर यूज़ कर सकते हैं, बट फॉर अस इन ऑर्डर टू डेमोन्स्ट्रेट इट, एक्रेलिक ये जो पीस कट किए हुआ है, these are really nice pieces. And as you can see here, you again have your same 7 shapes. Now just because I think you guys should know how to make these shapes and make this into a square, what we'll do now is we'll arrange this. आपके सामने मैं लाइव इसको अरेंज करके दिखा देता हूँ. ये आपके जो दो बड़े ट्रायंगल्स थे उससे एक अलग से स्क्वायर बन जाता है, बट दिस इज नॉट द स्क्वायर यू आर लुकिंग फॉर. यू आर लुकिंग फॉर अ बिग स्क्वायर. तो इसको हमें इन दोनों ट्रायंगल्स को मैं छोटा सा गैप रखता हूँ बीच में ताकि दिख जाएगा. सो यू अरेंज इट लाइक दिस. नाउ दिस इज वेयर आई एम गोइंग टू गिव यू द बिगेस्ट ट्रिक और बिगेस्ट हिंट ऑफ योर लाइफ. यहाँ पर आपको बाकी सब पीसेस अरेंज करने से पहले ये स्क्वायर उठाना. ओके, यू हैव टू ग्रैब दिस पर्टिकुलर स्क्वायर and you have to arrange this square exactly along this line and just place it here. Okay, place it somewhere in the center and now you will see this small triangle exactly fits here. I'm purposely keeping two triangles in two different orientation. ये कुछ नहीं है, ये acrylic है और उसके पीछे का पेपर है, पर दो अलग अलग triangles है. ये दिखने के लिए हम इसको इस तरीके से यूज करेंगे. The second triangle that you have, you can just place it here, and the big triangle that you have here, which I will also flip so that it's easily visible, can be kept here. और finally आपका ये जो काजू-कतरी जैसा पीस था या फिर जो parallelogram था, this parallelogram can nicely fit in this orientation and you get your square back. Okay, so मैं इसको थोड़ा सा align करता हूँ. Now you can see that square. Okay, so this square can be formed again using this same 7 pieces, and if I put some slight gap into this, you can see which 7 pieces were originally arranged as square. But what we were referring to is learning maths. This is fun. How do you learn maths from it? Is let's go with the most basic idea and I will show you the slide now. यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं, यहाँ पर 7 figures आपको दिख रहे हैं, and because this is a live thing, I want people to write it in chat कि हमको बताइए कि ये 7 shapes जो आपको दिख रहे हैं, ये 7 shapes कौन से. Like you can be as specific as possible. Instead of writing just triangle, you can probably write right angle triangle, or instead of writing just say a square, square is a square, it's okay. You can also see that the triangles have 2 sides which are almost same as each other. So you can also write right angle isosceles triangle or whatever. So I will try to monitor this in chat. मैं 1-2 मिनट देखने की कोशिश करूँगा कि किसी को वो शेप्स को आइडेंटिफाई करने आ रहा है क्या. ओके, एंड देयर इज नो टाइमिंग एग्जैक्टली, बट आई वुड से योर टाइम स्टार्ट्स नाउ. सो आई एम ट्राइंग टू लुक एट द चैट एंड सी इफ समबडी इज राइटिंग दीज आंसर्स. या, सो a lot of people are writing squares, parallelograms, ये सब हम देख सकते हैं. There is also a poll that you can answer the questions at. Yes, there is right angle triangle. There are actually more than 4 triangles. किसी ने तो 4 triangle लिखा है, तो see how many triangles you can actually find. Okay, और जानबूझ के मैं अभी वो इमेज आपको नहीं दिखाऊंगा. अगर किसी ने पेपर पे बनाया है तो you can use that as well. Right, but let's act in the interest of time and in interest of actually getting to know shapes better, I will quickly tell you what all shapes you see here. And the problem with textbook diagrams or any diagram that you see is a diagram is static. It's a stationary figure. So you can't rotate it. You can't compare it very quickly. But as you can see here, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 triangles, 1 parallelogram and 1 square. Okay. So basic tangram, 7 shapes jo aapke bante hai, that is made of these particular figures. And in the overhead camera, I can also show you that these 2 triangles are there. These 2 triangles are also there. And you can see by placing them on each other that these 2 are the same triangles. These 2 are the same triangles. And how do we know that these sides are equal to each other? क्योंकि अगर ये same ही triangle है, तो I can flip this triangle and it still aligns really well. Which means this side is same as this side और these 2 sides are also same as each other. तो यहाँ पर आपको ये दोनों sides जो दिख रहा है, I can just use this to point. ये side और ये side जो है, ये equal है. Okay, same goes for this triangles, that this side and this side is equal. And we know that this is a square. How do we know this is a square? Is because you can see that all sides are same. This is not any other quadrilateral. This is actually a square because you can see that this side is same as this side, which is same as this side and this side. So it's a square. It's not a rectangle. It's not any other quadrilateral. It's actually a square. And this particular shape, जिसको हमने काजू कतरी जैसा कहा था, that last shape that you see is actually a parallelogram, because see, this side is not same as this side. So this is not really a rhombus, it is actually a parallelogram, because अगर ये side और ये side भी same होता तो this would have been a rhombus. So a basic shapes that you can identify are isosceles triangle. So all of triangles that you see in tangram, all triangles in tangram, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are right angle isosceles triangles. There is one parallelogram and there is one square. Okay, now for those who are slightly younger children in audience, you can also look at different angles on tangram, and you can write in chat, in all of tangram there is only one obtuse angle triangle, ज्याला अपन विशालकोण त्रिकोण असं म्हणतो. ओके, पूरे tangram में सिर्फ एक ही obtuse angle triangle है जो कि यहाँ पर पाया जाता है. All other angles are either right angles or they are acute angle triangles. Okay, or they are acute angles. यहाँ पर भी देखिए, this is also an acute angle, this is also an acute angle. Only these two which are in front of each other are obtuse angles. Everything else is either a right angle or a acute angle. Now how much is this acute angle या फिर उसका टोटल कितना है वो भी हम यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं. Almost all acute angles, almost क्या, actually all acute angles in the tangram are 45 degrees. And how do we know that? ये देखिए यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं, these are two acute angles. Okay, and these two acute angles actually are aligned like this. अगर मैंने इसको इस तरीके से align किया तो you get a 90 degree here. How are we sure that this is 90 degree? We can use a square and just place it on top of this, and you can see that this perfectly aligns with each other, right? So, and this is split into two angles, both angle which is equal to each other. So if you split 90 degree by 2, you will actually get 45 degrees. So all of these small angles in tangram are actually 45 degrees. You can compare all of them literally by placing them on each other. Even in this shape, the small angle is still 45 degree. और आपके पास अगर फिजिकल ऐसा वाला tangram नहीं है तो आप पेपर को भी एक दूसरे पे रख के चेक कर सकते हो that all acute angles in tangram are 45 degrees. Now we know that these are right angle triangles. So this, we can see that these two are forming a right angle triangle here. But how do we know how much is this angle? Okay, and in order to understand how much is this angle, we can do two simple tricks. One is, if I place this shape, मैं बाकी के shapes हटा देता हूँ. If I place this shape, now we know that this is a 45 degree angle, right? If we see that this is a 45 degree angle, what I can do is I can place this shape right next to it and I get a straight line. Okay, so if I get a straight line here, which means that this angle plus this angle, यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं, this small angle plus this obtuse angle is 180 degrees, which means that if this is 45, this should be 180 minus 45, right, which should come to 135 degrees angle. And these two, because these two angles form a 180 pair, we can call this a supplementary angle pair. हमारे टेक्स्ट बुक में वी हैव ऑल्सो लुक्ड एट सप्लीमेंट्री एंड कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री एंगल्स. सो इन टैनग्राम यू विल फाइंड पेयर्स ऑफ एंगल्स विच आर ईदर सप्लीमेंट्री जिसका टोटल 180 होता है, और यू विल गेट कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री एंगल्स जिसका टोटल, जैसे आप यहाँ पे देख सकते हो, यू कैन ऑल्सो गेट एंगल्स विच विल बिकम 90. नाउ दिस is actually one way to figure out the supplementary and complementary angle pair. The other way to know that this is 135 is you can also add instead of subtracting. So you can see that this is 90 degree here, and if I place another triangle which is like this, so this is 45 degree here, and this again aligns with each other. So I will just flip it like this, and you can see that ये जो angles है ये फिर से एक दूसरे को align हो जाता है, and exactly you will get 90 plus 45 which again gives you 135. So in tangram there are just three angles, 45 degree, 90 degree and 135 degrees. Okay, so you can do a lot of simple mathematics like identification of shape, identification of angles, addition of angles, supplementary, complementary angles just using tangram. But there is another topic which is slightly more complex or slightly more tricky for students to grasp, and that is mainly about supplementary and complementary figures. Okay, and that actually is, as you can see, I will share my screen again. I have just opened one of their textbooks here. This might seem a little boring, but it is actually how science or maths can be explored in more systematic manner. तो यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हो ये NCERT का जो साइट है वहाँ से मैंने ये टेक्स्ट बुक खोला हुआ है, and this is your 10th grade textbook which has the 6th chapter called triangles, and you will see a lot of properties of triangles, but you will see a name called similar figures and congruent figures. Okay, so similarity and congruency actually gets covered in this particular chapter, but what we are trying to look at is what do you really mean by a similar figure and congruent figure, and how can you use tangram to actually make similar and congruent figures. So I will again shift to my overhead camera right now, and you can see that in tangram you have so many different shapes, out of which only two shapes are really congruent to each other, and these are these two small triangles. ये देखिए ये जो दोनों small triangles हैं, because I can place this triangle over the other triangle and they are exactly congruent. Similarly, these two bigger triangles are exactly congruent to each other, so you can place it over each other like this, and I can also flip it just to show that they are really congruent to each other. कोई भी side या फिर angle बाहर नहीं आ रहा है. So these two triangles and these two small triangles एज अ स्टैंड अलोन शेप या फिर उसके खुद के हिसाब से भी वो एक दूसरे से कॉन्ग्रुएंट है, बट ऑल अदर शेप्स दैट यू सी हियर कैन ऑल्सो बी टर्न्ड इनटू अ कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री और अ सप्लीमेंट्री शेप पेयर. सो व्हाट डू आई मीन बाय दैट इज यहाँ पर हम देख सकते हैं कि अभी ये जो ट्राइंगल है, ये जो मेरा यहाँ का ट्राइंगल है, दिस ट्राइंगल is actually a similar shape or similar triangle to this one, because you can see that all angles are exactly same and all sides are proportional to each other. Similarly, I can place this triangle inside here, and you can see that the smaller triangle is also proportional to the other two triangles, or they are all similar triangles. So all triangles in tangram are similar triangles to each other. Only two of them are congruent triangles to each other. And you can not only make just triangles, you can make more shapes or more combination of shapes which are similar or actually also congruent to each other. तो अभी I think this might get little confusing, तो थोड़ा अच्छे से ध्यान देना. Let's just make combination of figures which will result into a similar figure or a congruent figure. ठीक है, सबको सिमिलैरिटी और कॉन्ग्रुएंसी के बीच का डिफरेंस समझ में आया रहेगा. दिस इज व्हाट आई अज्यूम. सिमिलर इज व्हेन योर एंगल्स आर सेम बट साइड्स आर नॉट एग्जैक्टली सेम. साइड्स थोड़े बड़े या छोटे हो सकते हैं. कॉन्ग्रुएंट मीन्स आपके साइड्स भी सेम है और एंगल्स भी सेम है. सो नाउ लेट्स सी हाउ यू कैन मेक कॉन्ग्रुएंट शेप्स फ्रॉम दिस. नाउ यू आर सीइंग दिस पर्टिकुलर स्क्वायर हियर. इफ आई हैव टू मेक अ कॉन्ग्रुएंट शेप टू दिस स्क्वायर, आई कैन टेक टू ऑफ दीज स्मॉल ट्रायंगल्स एंड जॉइन देम टुगेदर, ओके, लाइक दिस. और अगर आपको ओरिएंटेशन भी वैसा ही रखना है तो आई कैन मेक इट लाइक दिस, ओके. एंड नाउ यू कैन सी दैट दीज टू स्क्वायर्स आर एग्जैक्टली सेम, सो दीज बिकम अ पेयर ऑफ कॉन्ग्रुएंट शेप्स. नॉट ओनली दैट, आई कैन मेक कॉन्ग्रुएंट शेप्स टू दिस ट्राइंगल एज वेल. तो आप यहाँ पर देख सकते हो ये एक ट्राइंगल है, एंड आई कैन जस्ट रीअरेंज दिस टू ट्राइंगल्स लाइक दिस, एंड नाउ आई कैन मेक कॉन्ग्रुएंट शेप्स फॉर दीज टू ट्राइंगल्स. And if I take the parallelogram like shape which looks like this, I can just rearrange these triangles again. And ये देखिए यहाँ पर छोटा साइड यहाँ पे, बड़ा साइड यहाँ पे. So I can just rearrange it like this. And now I get another pair. थोड़ा सा I get another pair of congruent figures which is congruent to each other. Not only that, instead of combining just two shapes, you can also combine three shapes and make congruent triangle to this big triangle. ये जो बड़ा सा triangle आपको दिख रहा है, अगर आपको इसको congruent shape बनाना है, तो you can use this big triangle like this, but instead of using it like this, we'll use it perpendicular like this. And ये दोनों triangles मिलके जो है, यहाँ पर हम देख सकते हैं, ये दोनों triangles मिलके और एक triangle बनता है. And this triangle can be placed along this triangle to make big shapes again. So if I place it like this, I will just flip it and place it like this. Now I get another pair of congruent shapes. So this shape is congruent to this shape, right? You can see that. You can just place it on this and you can see that बड़ा जो triangle था, बड़े triangle को congruent shape बना सकते हो आप दो छोटे या फिर तीन छोटे triangles use करके. Now I'm not giving you all the solutions, but in theory, tangram can be used to make n number of congruent and similar pairs. Okay, one of the most interesting examples that I can show you right now is, I'll just make it in front of you, is you will see this shape which is here, the parallelogram which is here. Now, if I use the smaller triangles like this in this orientation as well as in this orientation, okay, because these are physical figures, these are physical puzzles, you can orient them very quickly. Okay, तो ये हमारा बन गया सिमिलर कॉन्ग्रुएंट शेप्स. और अगर मैं दो बड़े ट्राइंगल्स यूज करता हूँ विच इज लाइक दिस, सो आई विल ट्राई टू जस्ट अलाइन इट इन द स्क्रीन. हाँ ठीक है, यहाँ पर हम इसको यहाँ रख देते हैं. एंड इफ आई टेक दिस टू बिग ट्राइंगल्स एंड अलाइन देम इन अ पर्टिकुलर ओरिएंटेशन विच इज लाइक दिस, you will see that now this shape and this shape is similar, whereas this and this is congruent, right? So you can make many such combinations of similar shapes and congruent shapes using tangram. And यहाँ पर आपको फिजिकल पजल भी हर बार चाहिए ऐसा नहीं, इसीलिए स्टार्टिंग में हमने दिखाया था कि सादा पेपर यूज करके हम tangram में अलग अलग शेप्स कैसे बना सकते हैं. सो माई एडवाइस टू स्टूडेंट्स एज वेल एज टीचर्स वुड बी, मेक योर ओन tangram. एक अपना खुद का tangram बना के देखिए और उसमें से अलग अलग सिमिलर और कॉन्ग्रुएंट फिगर्स क्या क्या बना सकते हो वो आप देख सकते हैं. नाउ इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ टाइम आई विल एक्चुअली स्लाइटली गो हैड. अगर कुछ डाउट्स है तो वी विल शेयर आवर कॉन्टैक्ट एंड ईमेल एड्रेस इन द चैट फॉर एज वेल एज इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन, सो प्लीज राइट टू अस. Now, the next thing that we can study using tangram, study is a difficult word, can explore using tangram is fractions and ratios. So इसके लिए पहले मैं आपको ये स्लाइड पे दिखाता हूँ ताकि समझने में थोड़ी सी आसानी होगी. You see these three triangles which are there, and these three triangles areas are actually very much proportional to each other. How are they proportional? Is you can see that this triangle can be rotated and it will fit exactly on this triangle. And अभी यहाँ पर हम देख सकते हैं कि ये हाफ बचा हुआ है और ये हाफ बचा हुआ है. Now you can again just place this triangle here और हम यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं कि ये हाफ इसका है और ये इसका ऑलमोस्ट 1/4 हो जाता है. सो इफ आई कंसिडर द एरिया ऑफ बिग ट्राइंगल टू बी 1 unit, then the area of the medium triangle is somewhere around half a unit and the area of the smallest triangle is about 1/4 unit. Okay, so now if this is understandable, we can also physically show it here. यहाँ पर देखिए ये मेरा बड़ा ट्राइंगल था, इस बड़े ट्राइंगल से अगर मुझे हाफ दिखाना है तो I will just use this other small triangle to actually show half. If I want to show 3/4, okay, so I can use this small triangle because see this triangle is actually 1/4 of the bigger triangle. Okay, this is 1.5 and 1/4, which is evident here, but I can also use this triangle and place it in this orientation here. और ये जो remaining shape यहाँ पे दिख रहा है, ये नीचे का जो shape यहाँ पे दिख रहा है, that is also 1/4, right? और now let's do more fun things with it. मैं जानबूझ के इसको इस orientation में रखता हूँ और इनको इस orientation में रखता हूँ. तो you can see that even if I arrange it like this, okay, this is still 3/4 of this figure because we know that this is 1/4, this is 1/2. तो ये जो इतना सा area यहाँ पे बच रहा है, that is also 1/4, even though it doesn't look like 1/4, right? You can do it with other shapes as well, that we know that suppose this is 1/2 or this and this, can be considered 1/4 as well as 1/4. Together this will make 1/2. Okay, and if I place which is same as this figure, हमने थोड़ी देर पहले similarity और congruency देखा था. So these figures are congruent, which means if this area can be considered as half, this area is also half. And if I place it anywhere on this triangle with exact orientation like this, you can see that right now half of the area of this triangle is covered by this shape, even though these shapes look very different. Or you can do much more fun things with fractions as well. If I have to ask you a question that you can use all pieces of tangrams and you have to show me a combination where 1/8th area is covered or 1/16th area is covered, and in order to do that I will actually show you a simple proportional और fractional type of example where अब यहाँ पर हम screen पे देख सकते हैं कि अगर मेरे पूरे tangram का जो मैंने start में tangram लिया था उसका area अगर मैं 1 consider करता हूँ, तो this is how proportional the areas of all other shapes will be. And how do we know that is because देखिए starting में हमने tangram बनाते वक्त ही पेपर को हाफ में फोल्ड किया, so the area got divided in half. Then we divided that triangle further into 2 pieces. तो इसको 2 pieces में divide करने की वजह से the area got divided further into half, so it's 1/4 and 1/4. Then we made that area again into half, so it's 1/8. और इस तरीके से आप इसका mathematical addition आप करते जा सकते हो. All these fractions if added together should come to 1. तो जिसको ये सच में करके देखना, you can pause the video here or take a screenshot later and try doing the addition whether you really get 1 or not. Okay, and now finally this particular thing is an interesting example of learning ratios and proportions, because you can do different proportions or different ratios just by using tangram. So I can ask you how much proportion of area is this shape as compared to this shape, or I can combine 2 shapes together, something like this or something like this, and if I make a square of this shape and I place this shape onto this, I can ask you a question that how much is the proportional area of the smaller square as compared to bigger square. And we don't have to actually measure it. Tangram becomes a great educational tool because you don't have to physically measure the area. You can just look up the different ideas or different logical problem solving, that we can see that these 2 triangles also combine to form the same square. Okay, so we know that the area of this square is same as combination of these 2 triangles. Now from here we can just use logic to see that for this particular square, this area is half, this area is 1/4, and these 2 are same as this. ये दोनों जो है ये इसी को सेम है. So just by using logic without physically counting, I can tell you that this square takes about 1/4 area of this bigger square. Okay, I hope people are on board और कोई खो या सो नहीं गया अब तक. But this is a very simple example of how you can use tangram and logical problem solving to compare areas and shapes of different figures that you see in tangram. And because we will run out of time in another 20 minutes, I will go to a slightly tricky but fun part of the tangram now, which is about Pythagoras theorem. Okay, now this is not a test, this is a fun learning session. So I am not going to ask you write Pythagoras theorem or prove Pythagoras theorem. I am already giving you Pythagoras theorem. Okay, so what Pythagoras theorem really means is that in Pythagoras theorem, you will see that the sum of the squares of the 2 sides of a triangle is equal to the square of the hypotenuse of the triangle. ये हमने टेक्स्ट बुक में भी देखा रहेगा. The same chapter that I had opened a while ago, which is the NCERT chapter. यहाँ पर ही triangle के chapter में अगर आप नीचे जाओगे तो you will see the Pythagoras theorem being discussed. Okay, I think it's yes, just somewhere here. I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling too fast क्योंकि मैंने ये book थोड़ी देर पहले ही देखा हुआ था and I could find Pythagoras theorem here. So this is your Pythagoras theorem. And you will see that the Pythagoras theorem also gets discussed in the same chapter. Now, but let's try to understand Pythagoras theorem not in terms of just a theorem, but in terms of what it literally means as a geometry problem or as a squares based problem. So if I ask you what is a square, you would say आप किस में पूछ रहे हो, आप geometry का square पूछ रहे हो या algebra का square पूछ रहे हो. And that is a valid question sometimes because we also know some things as square numbers. We have 4, 9, 25 or 36 which are all square numbers. but we also know a square, which is a physical square. So in theory, a square, whether it is a arithmetic square or it is a geometric square, is still a square, right? So what do I mean by that is a square, which can be a number, can also be represented as a square. And what will this square be? It will actually be the multiplication of the two sides. So because the square has same two sides, the multiplication will always be numerical multiple. तो अगर मैंने कहा कि ये एग्जाम्पल में मैंने a को 2 कंसिडर किया, तो my a square will become 4. और अगर मैंने a को 5 कंसिडर किया, तो my a square will become 25. Correct? So a square that you see in algebra as geometry can be compared to each other in your mind as a logical conclusion of each other. Now here a square plus b square is equal to c square जब कहा जाता है, तो you can imagine this as something like this, where the a square or a square drawn along one side of the triangle plus the square drawn on the other side of the triangle should equal to the square drawn on the third side of the triangle, right? And this is something that we also tried using another pair of activities. So if you go on EISER Pune's website, and we'll also link actually particularly this activity in the description box later, that this activity is a very same fun puzzle that you can make at your home using papers or using simple cardboard, and you can show how Pythagoras theorem actually works. And you can, as you can see here in this particular puzzle, you can have a small square which is represented here, and this small square, मैं just pointer use करता हूँ यहाँ पे, this small square that is here plus the big square which is here is cut into multiple pieces, and you can just rearrange this small square here, and you can rearrange this big squares cut into 4 pieces here to show that this area plus this area is equal to this area. Okay, and that is what Pythagoras theorem really is. Pythagoras theorem just tells you that sum of these two areas, okay, ये हम बाद में आते हैं, sum of these two areas is same as the area on the hypotenuse side. Now why I said इस पे हम बाद में आते हैं is, now what I'll first show you is using tangrams we can make two squares, two small square. हमने एक बड़ा square तो बनाया ही था, but you can also make two small squares, and you can see here that just by combining two big triangles you get one square. Okay, this is your one square already, and by combining the other shapes you can also make another square. Now in the interest of time, I will not ask audience to try this and try this out, because yes, it is much more fun, but it takes a bit of time. So abhi, because we want to do it with teachers and students and give it as a hint, एक बड़ा सा hint मैं आपको देता हूँ, ये side और ये side align हो जाता है. Okay, so if you align these two sides to each other like this, you will get a square which is same as this square. And how can you form a square? दूसरा एक hint ये होता है, you can place it on this. ये करने पे क्या होता है कि जो शेप यहाँ पर, अगर मैं इस शेप को यहाँ पे रखता हूँ, ओके, सो दिस कैन स्टिल फिट हियर, इट्स नॉट गोइंग आउट, बट इफ आई फिट दिस शेप इन दिस ओरिएंटेशन, तो ये तो स्क्वायर से बाहर चला गया. सो आई नो दैट दिस शेप हैज़ टू बी केप्ट हियर. नाउ द स्क्वायर कांट बी केप्ट एनीवेयर एल्स बट समवेयर हियर, एंड द अदर टू पीसेस नाउ ग्रेजुअली फॉल इन हियर एंड हियर, राइट? सो बाय जस्ट डूइंग दिस आई कैन मेक टू स्क्वायर्स which are again congruent to each other. इसको थोड़ा सा मुझे अलाइन करने दीजिए. Okay, yeah. So now you can see that these two squares are again congruent to each other, and you can see that these two squares which are formed also have the same area because they are congruent. They are made from the same pieces. Now, just in the interest of time, what I'll do quickly now is I will show you how these two squares can be arranged like this. Okay, and I will first show you the actual image that we were talking about. So इसके आगे जो हमने देखा था, this, imagine this to be my Pythagoras triangle. So for Pythagoras triangle we will have to prove it using a triangle. Okay, so what we will do is in the actual experiment or in the actual demonstration, अभी suddenly color change नहीं हुआ है, मेरे पास दो अलग अलग color के tangrams है. Okay, as you can see here there are two different tangrams that we have. Now imagine this to be my triangle on which I want to prove Pythagoras theorem. Okay, in order to prove Pythagoras theorem along this triangle, a square along this side, a square formed along this side plus a square formed along this side both the pieces from here should combine to form a square which is formed along this side. Okay, everyone agrees that that is how I can prove Pythagoras theorem using tangram. Now this triangle is same as this triangle. हमने सेम ही शेप्स कट किया है, सिर्फ दो अलग अलग शेप में कट किया है. सो दीज टू आर सेम ट्रायंगल्स. Okay, so whether I use orange color or this color, it shouldn't be a problem. It's just that they are all same triangles. Now what we will do here is I will keep this shape here, and just by using this particular color I will make a big square. ठीक है, मैं इसका एक big square बना लेता हूँ, and I can place this square here. Okay, so I got my a square. If I have to show that a square, see, let's just name them. Consider this side to be a, this side to be b, and this side to be c. So I have already decided मेरा a square तो बन गया. Now I have to make a b square which is here. Now just to keep things colorful and to make them understand easier, I will use the other color or the orange color to make another square. यहाँ पर मेरे पास orange color के भी pieces है. Okay, so ये a square मेरा बन गया, इसको मैं साइड में रख देता हूँ. The b square that I want to make should have the same side as this. तो मैंने इसको इससे अलाइन कर लिया. अब इसके बाद because I have just done it multiple times, I can quickly arrange this as a circle. But आपको जो है थोड़ा सा प्रैक्टिस करना है. Okay, not circle, sorry, I meant square. So I can just arrange this as a square. Okay, and because these are multiple pieces, they might move around a little bit. But I get my another square, and this square plus this square which I can place here. Okay, now in order to prove Pythagoras theorem, or in order to see Pythagoras theorem in action, these two plus these two should be able to form a square which will be here. Okay, now because it is slightly difficult for me to show it using just the actual figures, and I also need slight amount of time to actually do this by hand, इसलिए मैं यहाँ पर आपको एनिमेशन में दिखाता हूँ कि what we are expecting is this two pieces plus these two pieces should fit in a square. तो यहाँ का ये जो square है हम इसको यहाँ पर ले सकते हैं, and these pieces, all of this pieces should fit into this square, right? Now ये जो हमने वहाँ पर एनिमेशन में देखा, we can also see this in real life. तो ये देखिए, ये हमारा पहला स्क्वायर था, ये हमारा दूसरा स्क्वायर है. ओके, एंड दिस इज माय पाइथागोरियन ट्रायंगल. सो a स्क्वायर प्लस b स्क्वायर now should be equal to c square. So what I will do again is I will place this as my side, and now I will have to align this 7 pieces into a square here. Okay, and this is where starting से जो हम करते आ रहे हैं is useful, और जो start में मैंने आपको ट्रिक दिखाया था वो यहीं पे काम आता है. You have to just align these two pieces like this. Okay, maybe I'll just keep the orientation same. Okay, you will align these two pieces like this. Remember the biggest trick I told you about solving tangram. You start with the square and you align the square right here in the center. Then you take this piece and you place it. कहाँ पे रखना है? Okay, if you place it like this, this has to go here. इसको यहाँ पे रखना है. फिर आपके ये जो दो पीसेस थे, ये ट्रायंगल यहाँ पे चला जाएगा, और ये जो पीस है ये यहाँ पे आ जाएगा. Okay, and finally just to complete the square, you pick the triangle and you place it here. Tada! That's your Pythagoras theorem. Okay, why? Because these two sides, now I'll just use the pointer for this. These two sides or these two triangles form a square along this side. These all pieces form a square along this side, and square of this plus square of this can form a square of this. Okay, so this way you can actually show that Pythagoras theorem that we saw, that a square plus b square is equal to c square in a triangle. I will again show you that image, which is here. A square plus b square is equal to c square in a triangle can be proved just by using pieces of the tangram. Okay, and it's almost 11:50. We have a 1 hour session, so I will just quickly summarize once what all we covered. Maybe the data handling and data error part can be done in some other session, or we will also share some resources in the description which you can see to look at the data handling and data part. But in order to summarize, I will just once show you what all we covered in today's session, because that is also important to summarize. We looked at how to identify different shapes using just tangrams. So in order to see it here, you can see that different shapes as isosceles, isosceles right angle triangle, parallelogram, square, all of these shapes can be actually identified in a tangram. Now, not only identification of the shapes, you can also identify different angles which is there. You can see which angles are supplementary angles, which angles are complementary angles, and how do you measure this angle without actually measuring the angle, just by using comparison. Then we saw something which was a slightly tricky concept of similarity and congruency. So as you can see here, that very quickly I can show you that these two triangles combined together again will make a congruent figure to this, but a similar figure to this. Or you can combine these two squares or these two pieces together to form a square which will be congruent to this square, similar to this square. But in theory, you can combine all of these 5 pieces together like this. And now you get 2 pairs of congruent shapes. So similarity and congruency, which is one of the tricky chapters or tricky parts, can be readily explored using tangram, and students can solve this as a puzzle. आप उनको tangram के pieces खुद से बनाने लगा सकते हो classroom में. This is especially for teachers. You can make tangram pieces in classroom. You can ask students to make different similar shapes or congruent shapes, and using this shapes itself, you can ask them to compare different areas by the idea that we explored next, which is fractions and ratios. So you can ask them to make a similar shape with 1/2 area as the original figure, or you can ask them to make a congruent shape which will have obviously the same area. Or if you want to compare ratios, you can ask them which area or which shape in tangram, suppose this shape in tangram or this shape in tangram, how much is the area of this shape as compared to this shape. इस टाइप के जो क्वेश्चंस है, the comparison or the ratios and fractions can also be done using tangram. And finally, this is more of a demonstration than an exploration, but you can make 2 squares in tangram, and combining these 2 squares together to form a big square along the side of triangle will give you a representation of Pythagoras theorem, or a proof, a visual kind of proof of Pythagoras theorem, to actually see Pythagoras theorem in action and how you can use tangram for it. So because it's almost end time and I am supposed to tell you more about an exciting event which is coming up. As most of you would know, 28th of February is celebrated as National Science Day in our country. And science, because EISER is a science organization and we are very passionate about maths and science and other things, we at EISER Pune have organized various events for you. And in this various events, there are physical events, there are also some talks, there are scientist interactions, there are a lot of science exhibitions and models that will be organized onto the campus. And those who are tuning in online, you won't be missing out on too much as well, because there are some online sessions as well. There is an online quiz, there is an online movie screening session as well. So those who are slightly far away from us can join us online on the 28th of February, which is this upcoming Tuesday. मंगलवार को जो 28 होगा उसमें आप हमारे साथ भी जुड़ सकते हैं, और उस टाइम पे जो अलग अलग टॉक्स है, जो अलग अलग इवेंट्स कैंपस पे होने वाले, वो भी हम आप तक पहुंचाने की कोशिश करेंगे. नेशनल साइंस डे, दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई वोंट टेल यू बाय माई सेल्फ, बट दिस इज योर होमवर्क. आपको ये जाके सर्च करना है या फिर ढूंढ के निकालना है कि इंडिया में 28 को ही नेशनल साइंस डे क्यों सेलिब्रेट किया जाता है. I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you. You have to search it for yourself. And I would request all of you to, I will just show you the poster for the National Science Day, which is there. This is our poster for National Science Day. And as you can see, there is a science model exhibition, science quiz, there is activities, science talks, scientist से interaction होगा. तो अगर आप पुणे में है या फिर पुणे के आसपास है, lot of places in Pune, including National Chemical Laboratory, including other places, are usually open on Science Day, because they do want to do a lot of activities. Ayuka में भी आज एक activity हो रहा है. So look up about science activity, National Science Day related activities, and I welcome or I request all of you to actually come to IISER or other places and enjoy celebrating National Science Day with us. And with that, I will take your leave for today. I hope you enjoyed today's session. आज के सेशन में आपने जो पेपर से टैनग्राम बनाना सीखा वो मैं सबको रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि एक बार प्रैक्टिस कीजिए. एंड वंस यू मेक योर ओन टैनग्राम, try making all these cat, dog shapes and everything with tangram, but at the same time also learn a bit of maths with tangram and have fun. So thank you.